Is freedom truly possible in a deterministic universe? This is the quandary that has left philosophers scratching their heads for centuries. On one hand, we have determinism, the belief that every event, including human cognition and behavior, decision and action, is causally determined by an unbroken chain of prior occurrences. It's a concept that suggests we are like dominoes, set in a line and knocked down one after the other by the forces of nature. On the other hand, we have free will, the ability to make choices that are genuinely our own, independent of natural causality. It's the belief that we are the authors of our own stories, the masters of our own destinies. But can these two concepts coexist? Can we truly be free in a universe where everything is determined? That's the big question. The answer isn't simple, but it's a journey worth embarking on. So let us delve deeper into this thought-provoking question. Determinism argues that every event, including human cognition and behavior, decision and action, is causally determined by an unbroken chain of prior occurrences. Before we delve deeper, let's take a moment to trace back the roots of determinism. The concept has its origins in ancient times, with philosophers like Heraclitus who believed in an ever-changing universe governed by a law of change. He famously said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice." Fast forward to the Enlightenment era, determinism found a firm ground in Newtonian physics, where the universe was seen as a giant clockwork, with every action resulting from a specific cause. This deterministic view was later challenged in the 20th century by quantum physics, yet the philosophy of determinism continues to hold sway over many minds. Among its many proponents, one can find the likes of Baruch Spinoza, a 17th century philosopher who argued that everything happens out of necessity, and nothing happens by chance. Then there's Pierre-Simon Laplace, the French mathematician who proposed a hypothetical demon that, if it knew the precise location and momentum of every atom in the universe, could predict the future. But what does determinism mean for us, for our actions, our choices? If everything is predetermined, if every thought, every decision is just the result of an unbroken chain of prior occurrences, where does it leave our sense of morality? If we have no real choice in our actions, can we be held morally responsible for them? This leads us to the age-old debate of determinism versus free will. If everything we do is determined by what has happened before, do we truly have free will? Or is our sense of freedom just an illusion? These questions and debates surrounding determinism are far from settled. They continue to intrigue philosophers, scientists, and thinkers across the world, challenging our understanding of reality and ourselves. If determinism holds, where does that leave us with the concept of freedom? The concept of free will, the belief that we have the power to make choices that are genuinely our own, seems to be at odds with determinism. Let's sink our teeth into this juicy philosophical morsel. Free will, it's the idea that each of us as thinking, feeling individuals have the power to make genuine choices. Choices that aren't predetermined or influenced by outside forces. It's the belief that we're the authors of our own destinies, the captains of our own ships. This notion of free will is deeply entrenched in our understanding of morality. After all, if we can't make real choices, how can we be held responsible for our actions? If every decision is simply the result of a complex chain of cause and effect, where does that leave morality, ethics, and personal responsibility? But what if free will is merely an illusion? Some philosophers argue just that. They suggest that every action, every decision, every thought is simply the result of prior causes. This is determinism, the belief that all events, including human actions, are ultimately determined by causes external to the will. So are our choices really our own, or are they the inevitable result of a chain of events set in motion long before we were even born? It's a perplexing question, one that's been debated for centuries. And what about the implications of this debate? If determinism is true, if every decision we make is predetermined, can we truly be held accountable for our actions, or does this undermine the very concept of moral responsibility? It's a question that goes to the very heart of who we are as human beings. Are we truly free? Or are we simply cogs in a vast deterministic machine? Are every action predetermined by a chain of cause and effect stretching back to the dawn of time? The conflict between determinism and free will has led to a number of proposed solutions. But those, dear listeners, are tales for another time. Until then, keep pondering, keep questioning, and keep exploring the vast landscape of philosophical thought. Compatibilists argue that determinism is compatible with free will, while incompatibilists hold that they are mutually exclusive. This is where the rubber meets the road in our philosophical journey. Compatibilists, as the name suggests, believe in compatibility. They argue that free will and determinism aren't just two guests tolerating each other at a dinner party, but rather, they're like two pieces of a puzzle that fit perfectly together. They propose that our actions can be both determined and free. How so? Well, they suggest that an action is free if it's the result of our internal states, like our desires or beliefs, even if these are themselves determined. In essence, it's not the absence of causes that makes an action free, but the type of cause. On the flip side, we have the incompatibilist. They're like the philosophical equivalent of oil and water proponents, contending that determinism and free will simply can't mix. In their view, if our actions are determined, then they're not free, and vice versa. They argue that true freedom requires the ability to have done otherwise, a condition that determinism, with its unbroken chain of cause and effect, ostensibly negates. Then, within the incompatibilist camp, there are two subgroups: the hard determinists, who accept determinism and reject free will, and the libertarians, no, not the political kind, but philosophical libertarians who reject determinism in favor of free will. The debate between compatibilism and incompatibilism is a lively one, full of intricate arguments and counter-arguments. It's like watching a philosophical tennis match with volleys of ideas going back and forth. But remember, it's not about picking a side, it's about understanding the depth of the question and appreciating the intellectual rigor it demands. Despite the differences, each perspective attempts to reconcile the tension between determinism and free will. And that's the beauty of philosophy. It's not about finding definitive answers, but rather exploring the questions that make us human. The question of whether freedom is possible in a deterministic universe has profound implications for our lives. The exploration of determinism, free will, and their potential coexistence reaches far beyond the abstract realm of philosophy and into the tangible world we navigate daily. These concepts have a significant impact on how we perceive ourselves, our interactions with others, and the world around us. Consider, for example, the concept of morality. If every action we take is predestined, can we truly be held morally accountable for our deeds? Or are we merely puppets, dancing on the strings of an omnipotent puppeteer? Our understanding of right and wrong, our judgments, our praises and condemnations, all hinge on the belief in free will. Similarly, the concept of responsibility is intrinsically tied to our belief in free will. If our actions are preordained, can we really be blamed or praised for our actions? The idea of reward and punishment, the very foundation of our legal and social systems, rests on the presumption of free will. Now, shift your thoughts to the meaning of life. If we are free agents, life is a blank canvas upon which we paint our own masterpiece. If we are bound by determinism, life becomes a script that we merely perform. Our understanding of life's purpose and our place within it is deeply influenced by our stance on this debate. Yet, the beauty lies not in the answers, but in the questions themselves. The exploration of these grand philosophical ideas allows us to delve deeper into the human condition, to question our existence, our choices, our very nature. It forces us to confront and challenge our perceptions, to grow and evolve, to gain a richer understanding of our world. While we may not have definitive answers, the journey of questioning and exploring these big ideas is what truly enriches our understanding of ourselves and the universe we inhabit.